Hi guys, this is Christine with Leverage for Change Coaching and Consulting. So today I'm going to come to bring to you one of the attachment style that I believe is the most difficult one, both for the person who grew up and now has to live with this attachment style, and for the person that this person with this attachment style is going to be in relationship with. So what is the fearful avoidant attachment style? Well, this style is very complicated in that they embody two different attachment styles, right? The anxious preoccupied and the fearful and the dismissive avoidant attachment styles. And so if you know the anxious attachment style, usually in relationships they're very anxious. They tend to have a high anxiety in relationships in terms of their partner and what their partner is doing, right? So they respond to little cues. For example, the person might not respond in a certain amount of time to their text or to their email or to their voicemail, whatever it might be, and they start to get anxious and think that this person is going to leave them, because the anxious preoccupied person biggest fear is the fear of abandonment, because in childhood they were never ever completely secure in the thought that their caregivers was going to be there for them. You know, it was a very inconsistent way in which the caregivers showed up. So the anxious preoccupied person with this attachment style, you know, is also anxious in their adult relationships. They carry this subconscious trait right into their adult relationships. Now, for the dismissive avoidant attachment style, this person, their caregiver was also just not there. Most of the time they were just not available to them. You know, so after a while they learned to, well, you know, they're not coming anyway, so I may as well find some other way to take care of myself. And so they learned very well how to self-soothe. And in doing this, they were able to be by themselves for long periods of time without any attachment. So in adult relationships, these individuals now, they are usually loners. They like to be by themselves. They like their space. They can't take too much people around them, and they really need, it's a need their space. They have learned to self-soothe, and some of these self-soothing techniques would be gaming, right? Because anything that does not require emotional intensity or emotional attachment, they will find to do. So gaming, they can get really caught up into a hobby. They can get really caught up in porn. They may seek relationships with prostitutes, and you might wonder, it's not really a relationship, really, and that's why they can do that, because with a prostitute you just do whatever it is you need to do, and that's it. There's no emotional connection, right? So they're able to do that, you know, kind of have that kind of a liaison, right? So so imagine this person who's a fearful avoidant individual with these two different kinds of attachment styles. And oh, I want to say something before I forget. When a fearful avoidant individual, when a person, I don't like to name people by their whatever problem that they're having. When someone is experiencing this attachment style, what happens is that if they're with a partner who is dismissive avoidant, right, they will embody and exhibit more of the anxious preoccupied attachment traits. I know I forgot my water. I should have. Anyway, and when they are in relationship with somebody who is anxious preoccupied, they will exhibit the dismissive avoidant traits. Oh my goodness. Sorry guys. So they're constantly moving from one thing to the other when they're, depending on who they're in partnership with, right? In a romantic relationship. And the thing about the difference between a fearful avoidant and a dismissive avoidant when it comes to relationships is fearful avoidance is almost that they have a need. They really have a strong desire to be in relationships. But at the same time, they don't trust relationships. So, because they feel the need to protect themselves from relationships, because for them, they learned that relationships mean pain when they were children. For them, relationships meant pain. So they have this strong desire for the relationship, but they fear relationships, right? So contrary to the dismissive avoidant, who they really don't, they want relationships because they want connection too, just as any human being will. But they need to be by themselves. They are quite comfortable being by themselves. They will spend long periods of time by themselves. I used to date somebody I used to call the hermit, because this person was like, just stayed by themselves, they're comfortable doing that. They don't need relationships, or they need it just to satisfy certain needs, but nothing else, right? They need to have their space. It can be really lonely as a fearful, having this attachment style. It can be really lonely because, as I said, they have a strong desire for intimate relationships, right? But they are afraid of them. So there's always this push and pull in these types of relationships. A relationship with a fearful avoidant person is, you will hear it described as hot and cold, right? Because it is like, they want that connection. They want that connection. So that they'll come to you, come close to you for that connection. But if that connection gets too emotionally intense, they will say, no, I can't take any more of that. Go away, go away, go away. So it's a come hither, go away. Come hither, go away. So it's a push-pull, on and off. You'll hear them described as on and off relationships. You'll hear them described as hot and cold. So these are the relationships with someone with this type of attachment style. It is a very emotionally taxing relationship, for both parties, but especially for the party who didn't sign up for this kind of relationship. You know what I mean? The party that is with the emotion, with the fearful avoidant attachment style individual. So there's this constant ambivalence, not wanting to be too close, but wanting connection. That kind of thing. So there's just always this back and forth. In the earlier parts of relationships, in the earlier part of getting to know this person, they can come off as anxious, preoccupied, or dismissive avoidant, depending on the person that they're interacting with, and also depending on what is going on with them that day. So it's very hard to tell at the beginning of a relationship what kind of attachment style someone has. So because they, as I said before, they have these two parts of them, the anxious and the dismissive, right? So sometimes at the beginning they will exhibit more of the anxious, and depending on the person, and also they may exhibit more of the dismissive. So it takes time to get to know this type of this individual with this style. The core wounds of the fearful avoidant person is really around distrust. They distrust relationships. Right? And so they're very what would I say? They will go into relationships very timid. They're very timid about relationships. So they will not be open. They're not open to relationships. They don't open themselves easily to relationships because they're afraid of being hurt. So they go into it almost like stepping into a water to see if it's too hot or it's too cold, that kind of thing. Very timid. They'll go into this relationship, and And even while they're in the relationship, they're always looking for cues, because individuals with fearful avoidant attachment style are very uh, they're very connected and very they can see things that most people don't really pay attention to, because as children they had to be able to know the different cues of their caregivers, because a lot of abuse would be in the home. Sometimes it was drugs. People, maybe one or both parents are on drugs, and so they're kind of volatile. There was a lot of volatility in the home, and so they had to protect themselves, and the only way that they could, because they're small, they're children, they can't protect them, they can't leave, because they still need care from these people, or food or clothing or whatever it is. And so they would know how to, maybe to run and hide, or maybe to try to act in a way to please them, like, so they are good at people pleasing, because they had to do that to protect themselves as well. And so they'll actually in relationships go beyond themselves, what's comfortable for them, to please somebody else, because they want that recognition. It makes them feel good or valuable in some way, because that was maybe the only time that they got any kind of a love or connection from their caregivers, when they people pleased, please them and go out of their way to do something for them. So as I say, they're very cautious in relationships, and they have a tendency to attract people who are emotionally unavailable or very aloof. And at the other end of the spectrum, though, they're cautious in the relationship, but at the other end of the spectrum, they will avoid relationships altogether, because it is just too painful, and they just don't want to be in a relationship. They've just given up on relationships. And while they're in the relationships, because they don't trust relationships, they will subconsciously, not consciously, guys, they will subconsciously sabotage the relationship. They will start doing things that will, really break down that relationship. They tend not to be casual lovers, because they are they want relationships. So for them they need not only just a casual sex partner, they want the emotional connection. But the problem is that when that connection gets too intense, they cannot take it, so they have to leave, right? So you can imagine being in a relationship with someone with this attachment style, and also being the person with this attachment style, and how difficult it is to navigate and really try to have a healthy relationship. So they basically, if there's a problem in the relationship, they will avoid discussing it. They will avoid discussing it, because they just don't want to have to deal with that emotional intensity that comes with discussing difficult problems. However, there's another side to that, which is, this is why it's so they have such a big problem when it comes to relationships, because even though they don't like emotional confrontation, then they also don't want, when I say emotional confrontation, they don't like it. But if they see something that's happening, and they won't talk to you directly into your face, because they don't want that emotional confrontation, but they will email you, they will text you, or they will leave a voicemail or something like that, or a letter, whatever it is that they choose to do, so as not to get that emotional confrontation. If they want to have, if there's something bothering them and they see it's not going to work and they want to leave, they will just text you or something, or just leave. But most of the times they will text you, but they will not confront you personally in front of your face to say, I believe this is happening, is this true, whatever it might be, right? So how was this attachment style developed? This attachment style was developed when caregivers just did not meet their children's emotional needs, because they're totally dependent on their caregivers at this point in this, as a child, as a baby. And so when their needs are not met, they have this reaction. They feel they don't trust relationships, and they see relationships as painful, right? There were inconsistencies in from their caregivers, and they really don't trust that their caregivers will be there when they need them. Sometimes they come, sometimes they don't. The home environment was usually very, very turbulent and volatile due to, could be physical, as I said before, sexual, or emotional abuse. There could be drug dependency in there from one or both caregivers, and a lot of maybe fights and quarrels, all the time. And so a lot of times when this was what the environment that was in this that was created in the subconscious of this child growing up. And as a result, this child believes that relationships should be painful, right? This is the turbulent. They think that relationships should be turbulent, and lots of quarrels and stuff going on, because that's what they learned. That is what they learned, right? And so sometimes when there are problems, and they have problems or something like that, they're the ones who you'll maybe see throwing a tantrum, or throwing something across the room, or just acting out really loud, and they're volatile, that kind of like explode for no reason. Sometimes you think just comes out of nowhere, but it is acting from that subconscious programming that needs to be reprogrammed if this person is to become more secure, and have the ability to have more healthy relationships in their more intimate, healthy, intimate relationships. So, as I mentioned before, there's just a lot of chaos that they experience as children, and so because of that, they have a lack of trust and fear of emotional closeness, and they can, as I said, become very angry, throw things, become abusive. It's kind of like reflecting the environment as it was when they were growing up as children. They are, as I mentioned before, they're extremely attuned to someone, to anybody else, their caregivers' feelings. But they are people who could basically read your emotions, because they had to be. That was the way they protected themselves. The feeling of, they have a feeling whenever they get into an adult intimate relationship, and they really, really, really care for that person, they will develop this feeling of helplessness, and almost like they're afraid, and feeling trapped, because what they feel is that if they are so vulnerable to this person, and they are like, they feel weak and out, and when somebody else, when they love that person too much, or they feel they just have too much emotional connection to them, they feel not in charge of their emotions, and so they feel trapped. And a lot of times, because they feel trapped, they will want to leave, because they get almost like they feel suffocated, like, I just have to get out of here, I just have to get out of here. And so they will, a lot of times they'll pick quarrels and do other things like that, just to break up and sabotage the relationship so they can leave. So guys, I am trying to make sure that I covered all the little points that of course I forgot most of them because I was rambling on at the beginning. But I just want you to understand how very volatile this particular attachment style can experience relationships. It's a very difficult attachment style to kind of recover from, but it is possible. But it takes a lot of work, and that is what I do. I work with each individual where they're at. So I remember I said that you can be along a spectrum of like down here to all the way up there. And so I work with the person and see where it is they're at and how it is that I can help them to become more secure. That's basically what I do in my practice. And so guys, please, if you've learned something from this this little information I put together, please like, share, and subscribe to my video, subscribe to my channel. And guys, please hit that notification bell so that as soon as I upload something, it will notify you. So this is Christine, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate your time and spending time with me to listen to some of these things I took time to make for you, to create for you. I really appreciate your support. And until next time, I'll see you. This is Christine, your relationship and mindset mastery doctor and your leverage for change. Take care. Next time.